So often we wait for the big moments to celebrate, but life is made up of a million little choices, small steps, and even little baby wins. What if we celebrated each of those, each thing, each day? God delights in our daily obedience and our small acts of courage, and we can too. Hi, friends. Welcome to Taking Back Happy. I'm your host, Gina Granville, God's girl, retired homeschool mom of 4, empty nester, Gigi, essential oil and exercise enthusiast, Christian life coach, and someone who's taken back her own happy. I know many of you feel exactly like me in these midlife years, a sort of loss of direction, but way too young and vibrant to sit on the porch and just watch life go by. What if you could reimagine your life, finding deep joy, renewed passion, and purpose, and plenty of adventure in these midlife years? If you're ready to rediscover God's joy and purpose in this season of life, throw on those walking shoes, pop in those earbuds, and join me right here as we take back happy together. Hey friends, and welcome to Taking Back Happy. Today, what if we could just literally throw some confetti for the ordinary? Yes, just the ordinary, nothing special, nothing big, nothing momentous, just the ordinary. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to look at 3 different things. I love to do 3 different things. Have you noticed that yet? I think that's the homeschool nerd in me. You know, once a teacher, always a teacher. But anyway, moving right along. So my first point is, what if small wins are really big in God's eyes? That's the question I want to ask ourselves. The second one is, what if gratitude would actually turn the mundane into holy ground? And then our third question is, what if the celebration actually built courage for whatever comes next? So let's look at how small wins really are big in God's eyes. If we go straight to the word, in Luke 16:10, it says, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with very much. And so that just gets me super excited because God sees the value in the small things. He sees the value in us being faithful in those little things. We can celebrate the yes when we could have said no. We can celebrate every little step forward when fear definitely told us to shrink back. One of my friends, Luana, is so good at just celebrating those little things. When my podcast first came out, and I was so thrilled and so excited, and I was like, oh my gosh, this was so hard, and I created this thing, and I was just beside myself with joy. She said, we've got to celebrate. And so we went to an ice cream place, and a bunch of girls got together, and they just celebrated me, and they celebrated with me, and it was just so very awesome. We were also celebrating one of my friends' birthdays at the same time, but I was like, I don't mind this. This is great because it was just like camaraderie. They were coming alongside of me, and they knew this thing had been really hard, and they knew it was a huge learning curve. And they knew that I was pretty stinking proud that I got it done. So it was a thrill to be able to celebrate that. Just the other day, I was talking to Luana again, and I'm getting ready to switch jobs. And I told her, I was like, tomorrow's my last day at my current job. And she said, girl, you've got to celebrate that. Not celebrate that you're leaving, but celebrate that you actually took the job to begin with. Celebrate what you've learned while you've been there. Celebrate how you've gained in your skills, and also just how you've gained working with people, and just celebrate everything that's been happening while you were there. You know, making new friends, meeting new patients, doing all the things, all those small little things. She said, even if it's just something really small, get yourself a snack. Well, guess what? I did. I got myself a snack. I got some ice cream. But just something small, something to acknowledge, like, yes, I can do hard things. These small moments are training grounds for bigger blessings. And God can use these to shape our character, to shape our faith, to encourage us, to just help us move forward. Many times in our life, God will like kind of impress us to make a change or to do something, like to do something for our health or to do something for a relationship we're in or to do something and when we're raising our kids, whatever it may be. And I think there's so many times that we get so down on ourselves. Say I'm trying to, eat healthier and get some weight off and be my, best fit person that I can be. But I keep going back and I keep like, oh man, I could have eaten better today. I should have eaten more fruit and vegetables. I should have gotten more protein, all that sort of thing. We're so good at beating ourselves up. But what if we actually celebrated every single time we were obedient to what God was leading us in? What if every time that we did eat the salad, we are like, woohoo, I made that good choice? That would be pivotal right there. I think celebrating and recognizing his goodness in our life just fills us with more gratitude. And the more gratitude we have, the better our life usually is. And that brings me to my second point. Gratitude actually can turn the mundane into holy ground. In First Thessalonians 5:18, it says, give thanks in all circumstances. It doesn't say give thanks in some circumstances. It doesn't say give thanks to those really big things that go on in your life. This is in all circumstances. To me, that would be all, day in, day out, everything. What if we had gratitude in our heart for the laundry that we had to fold? How about the dinner we have to make? How about taking a walk? How about just all those little things, mowing the lawn? These moments actually seem very ordinary, just everyday life, right? But gratitude can actually transform them into like opportunities to praise God, to worship, to, give thanks for like strong, healthy bodies that are able to mow the lawn. Or, if it's folding laundry, hey, we got clothes. And so that's something to be thankful for. When we celebrate the everyday, we remind ourselves that joy is not waiting like somewhere out there far away, in some future event or some big thing that's going to happen. It's really available to us right now, today, just being in God's presence. And that just makes me think, my grandson, he just moved up to Knoxville and I am missing him like crazy. I wasn't keeping him every week like I had been last year, but I would still see him very often and I'd spend time with him and we'd do things together and we'd play together. And so there's really leaving a void in my heart where he's not there. But one thing that just kind of happened by happenstance was the other night they FaceTimed me and it was right before he went to bed. And I actually pulled a book off the shelf and I said, hey, let me read you this book. We have this little book that he loves to read. And it's like one of those ones where can you find the guinea pig? And the guinea pig's behind the little flap. Can you find the cat? And each thing has a funny little name or whatever. And he loves that story. It's one of his favorite stories. So I went ahead and I read that book to him. And then it's just a quickie little book. And so afterwards, I was like, do you got time for one more? And his mom and dad said, yeah, he could do one more. So I pulled this other book off the shelf that we had never read before. It was actually a book that my kids had read when they were little, or I had read to them when they were little. And I read it to him and he loved it. It was just a short little book. It was called Macduff Comes Home and it's about a little dog and he chases a rabbit and he gets lost. And anyway, he just loved it so much. And so the next day or a couple of days later, they FaceTime me again. He's like, can you read that book? And the little dog on the front kind of looks like my mom's dog and she has a dog named Henry. So he's like, can you read that book about Henry? And it just like blessed my heart so much. I have so much gratitude for FaceTime. I have so much gratitude for the technology that allows me to see his cute little face and to be in his bedroom with him, reading to him, even though we're 8 hours apart. It's such a blessing. I think journaling's a great way to list all those little celebrations, all those little praises, all those small little things that happen. I mean, you could just name them out loud or tell a friend or share them with somebody else. But just actually noticing the way that God's hand is on the ordinary can be life changing. Which brings me to my next point. Nothing can be more life changing than having courage. And I feel like celebration actually builds courage for whatever comes next. One of my favorite verses is Nehemiah 8:10. The joy of the Lord is your strength. As Taken Back Happy friends, we're looking for both the joy and the strength. And I feel like celebrating those little things will actually strengthen us. It's almost like filling up a jar full of cookies or a jar full of something that you're just every time you're putting a little joy in. I know when my kids were little, we would have like jars and that would have like chores. They could pull out a chore. Or we'd have jars where we saved pennies and we'd put pennies in. Or we'd have jars where we were thankful for something and we'd write in what we were thankful for. And as that jar filled up, it was really cool to watch that. And that's kind of like the same thing. The more that we're celebrating these little things, the stronger we get. And that not only gives us that joy, but it also prepares us for when we have harder days or when we're in the middle of something not quite as joyful as we want it to be. So every little celebration actually can sort of reinforce that God's with us. We know we can do hard things because we've done them before, right? It's kind of like street cred. We see it and we're like, oh yeah, I can do that. And the more that we celebrate, the more that we, depend on God and receive his joy and his strength, the more it builds us up and builds up our courage that we can do more hard things. When midlife women celebrate these little things like trying a new hobby, starting a podcast, speaking up for yourself, taking time for yourself, trying to figure out, what your next step is, what your purpose is, how you're showing up in this world, how God's using you to change lives of other people. All those things build courage for the very next step we're going to take. And then the next step we're going to take. And then the next step. It's so cool. It's like we're moving toward our God-given purpose. Recently, in the past, I don't know, even maybe the last year, I have been standing up for myself more. I have been asking for things I want. I have been expressing if I'm unhappy with something and how I think would be a better way to do it. And if you went back even like 5 years, that was not me. I was like total people pleaser. In fact, I was the queen of the people pleasers. If there was a committee on people pleasers, I was like the one running the entire meeting. It's so freeing to be my own best advocate and, asking for things that I want, or if somebody asks me something, should we do this or this, to tell them exactly how I feel. I mean, they still have the option to say no. I can't make them say yes or do it my way, but it just feels good to be able to share that and not feel shameful about it or not feel like, oh, I shouldn't be asking this. So my Taken Back Happy friends, I want us to remember that life just isn't about waiting for those like mountaintop moments or those really big moments, those graduations and those big celebrations. Life is mainly lived in the valley and lived just like in a daily path. We're constantly, it's going up, it's going down, it's happy, it's sad, it's back, it's forth. And that's just how life is. But a lot of times we get stuck in that mundane and we don't want to, celebrate those little moments. But if we change our thinking just a little bit and we start celebrating right where we are, our joy is actually going to multiply. God not only meets us where we're at, he'll meet us in those big moments, but he'll also meet us when we're folding the laundry, when we're taking the walk, when we're doing those little things that we do all the time. God is celebrating our little wins because they're really big in his eyes. He's pointing us toward gratitude and just proving again and again that gratitude can turn the mundane into holy ground. And last but not least, he is showing us that celebration truly does build courage for whatever comes next. You got this, my Taken Back Happy friends. We're not waiting for our birthday. We're not waiting for our anniversary. We're not even waiting for Christmas. However, I do really love Christmas. We are going to celebrate today. So throw that confetti for the ordinary. If this podcast blessed and encouraged you today, I'd love for you to share it with your friends. You can take a screenshot and share it in your stories, but make sure you tag me at Gina Granville so we can connect. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you join my Taken Back Happy Facebook group. I'll meet you back here soon, and we'll continue taking back happy together.